powerful roar of Keanu Reeves' motorcycle shattered the stillness of the empty parking lot. He cut the engine, but before stepping off, something made him pause. An elderly man, moving slowly with weariness etched across his face, struggled to push a row of shopping carts that seemed almost too heavy for him. Keanu watched for a moment, then made a decision. What followed would not only change that man's life forever, but deeply touch yours as well. But before we dive into this story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, hit that subscribe button because tomorrow, we've got another special one coming your way. The soft morning light seeped through the faded curtains of Earl's modest home. He rose slowly, feeling the weight of another day pressing down on him. His back ached with each movement, but he pushed through the pain, just as he did every morning. He had to stay strong, for Margaret, his wife, who was still asleep in the next room. The kitchen, though small, had a warmth about it, filled with old memories. On the walls hung photographs, a beaming wedding portrait, a beach trip from the 70s, a joyful family Christmas. Earl paused for a moment in front of them. What happened to those days? He wondered, tightening the wedding band on his finger. After brewing a simple cup of coffee, Earl made his way to Margaret's room. She sat on the bed, staring blankly into space. Alzheimer's had stolen so much from her, but Earl still saw the woman he loved in the glint of her eyes. Kneeling beside her, he gently took her hand. "Good morning, my love," he whispered. Margaret didn't respond, but a faint smile tugged at her lips. For Earl, that was enough. He helped her to the bathroom and then to the kitchen table. As she settled, he sorted through her medications, each pill a reminder of the battle they fought every day. "Today's going to be a good day, sweetheart," he whispered, as if trying to convince himself. In the living room, reality awaited. A stack of bills, most marked with overdue notices, sat on the table. Earl sighed deeply, picking one up and scanning the numbers with tired eyes. "Maybe I can pick up a few extra hours at the market today," he muttered, searching for a sliver of hope. Before he left, he returned to Margaret's room to say goodbye. She was holding their wedding photo, something she did almost every day. Earl stroked her gray hair, whispering, "I'll be back soon." "Stay well, my love." Margaret didn't respond, but in her eyes, he saw a flicker of recognition. As he closed the door behind him, Earl cast one last look at the sky, now painted with the colors of the rising sun. With a weary sigh, he whispered, "Give me strength for one more day." Little did he know, this day would bring a turn of events that would change his life forever. The market's parking lot was already buzzing when Earl arrived. He stepped out of his car, an old sedan that showed its age, just like him. His knees ached as he got out, but he grabbed his faded work vest from the back seat. The worn fabric bore the marks of years of use, but Earl put it on with quiet dignity, as he always did. "Another day," he muttered to himself. The morning air was cool, a welcome relief, but Earl knew it wouldn't last. Soon, the summer sun would heat the asphalt, making his job even harder. He set to work, methodically organizing the scattered shopping carts. Each push sent a wave of pain through his knee, but he didn't stop. Every minute he lost meant more pressure to get the job done, and he didn't want to give the manager any reason to complain. Taking a brief pause to wipe the sweat from his forehead, Earl glanced around. The parking lot was packed with cars, shoppers hurrying in and out of the store. A young man, pushing a cart in a rush, nearly bumped into Earl. "Sorry, sir," the man said, not even stopping. Earl barely heard him as the man disappeared into the aisles. "Sir," Earl repeated under his breath with a bitter smile. He knew his age was showing, but it stung every time someone called him that. Just then, a voice cut through the air. "Earl, what's going on here? Why are these carts still scattered all over?" It was the manager, a man in his 30s with an impatient tone. Earl straightened up, ignoring the ache in his knee. "I'm getting everything in order, sir. Just need a few more minutes." "A few more minutes?" "That's no excuse," the manager snapped, his voice laced with sarcasm. "If you were faster, we wouldn't need two people doing your job." Earl pressed his lips together, holding back the words that threatened to spill. Arguing wouldn't help, it would only make things worse. Instead, he returned to the carts, pushing them with more force than before. The metallic clatter echoed across the parking lot as he worked through the pain, the day unfolding in ways he could never have imagined. "Then you give yourself credit for," Keanu said, his voice filled with sincerity. Earl smiled faintly, the weight of his years and struggles evident in his eyes, but there was a quiet pride in his expression too. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching the world go by. People rushed past them, caught up in their own daily battles, but for a brief while, Earl and Keanu shared a moment of peace, a brief respite from the demands of life. Keanu's eyes drifted to the parking lot, and then back to Earl. "You know, Earl, there's something about the way you carry yourself," Keanu said slowly, as if choosing his words carefully. "It's not just the work, the struggle, it's how you do it. You don't give up, no matter how hard it gets. That kind of strength, it doesn't go unnoticed." Earl chuckled softly, shaking his head. "Just trying to get by." He sighed, looking away for a moment. "For Margaret." Keanu nodded, understanding more than he let on. "But you're doing more than just getting by, Earl. You're fighting every single day. That's something." Earl shrugged, but the quiet pride in his heart grew a little stronger. It was hard not to feel a sense of gratitude towards the man who had quietly stepped into his life today, offering help without asking for anything in return. After a few moments of reflection, Keanu stood up. "Listen, Earl, I know it's not much, but there's something I can do for you." Earl raised an eyebrow, his tired eyes searching Keanu's face for any signs of a joke. "What do you mean?" Keanu pulled out a small card from his jacket pocket and handed it to Earl. "It's a contact for a local organization that helps with medical bills and living expenses for people in situations like yours. They've got resources that could ease the burden for you and Margaret." Earl looked at the card, disbelief and gratitude mixing in his gaze. He didn't know what to say at first. After everything, this stranger, this man who had simply seen his struggle and decided to help, had given him something more precious than a simple gesture. It was hope. Keanu gave him a reassuring smile. "You're not alone in this, Earl. You've already done so much. It's okay to ask for help when you need it." Earl's throat tightened as he looked at the card, unable to express the gratitude he felt in that moment. He never expected this day to turn out like this. Never expected someone like Keanu Reeves to cross his path. But sometimes, life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. He stood up, shaking Keanu's hand with more strength than he thought he had left. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." Keanu simply smiled, his eyes full of quiet understanding. "You don't have to say anything. Just take care of yourself and your wife. That's all that matters." With that, Keanu turned and walked back toward his motorcycle, the roar of the engine coming to life again, but this time, it wasn't just a sound. It was a reminder that sometimes, a small act of kindness could change someone's life forever. As Keanu drove off, Earl stood there for a moment, the weight of the day still pressing on him, but for the first time in a long while, he felt something else, hope. Maybe, just maybe, things could get better. And that was a thought he hadn't allowed himself to have in a very long time. Tomorrow, maybe it would be a little easier. Maybe it wouldn't, but for now, he had one thing that mattered more than anything, the strength to keep going. "Though you might not always see it," Keanu said firmly. The manager crossed his arms, clearly not expecting the conversation to take this turn. Keanu continued, his voice steady, but there was a weight to his words. "Earl's been working here for a while now, and he's been going through a lot. He's a dedicated man, but he's struggling." The manager looked a little taken aback, but his attitude didn't change. "What do you mean, exactly?" Keanu paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'm talking about his personal situation, his wife, Margaret. She has Alzheimer's, and Earl's doing everything he can to support her. But the financial strain is getting to him. I want to help." The manager shifted uncomfortably in his seat, clearly caught off guard. Look, Keanu, I understand the guy's been working hard, but we can't just throw him a lifeline. We all have our struggles. Keanu leaned in slightly, not backing down. That's exactly why I'm here. Not to make excuses for him, but to give him a chance. Earl needs help, and if you're not in a position to offer it, then maybe we need to find a way to make things right for him. There was a long silence as the manager processed Keanu's words. Finally, he sighed, clearly not convinced, but resigned to the fact that Keanu wasn't leaving without a resolution. All right, so what do you want me to do about it? Keanu stood tall. I've got a few ideas. I want to ensure Earl has the resources to continue working here, but with a little more breathing room. You see, it's not just about his job, it's about his life. His wife's treatment costs are enormous, and I'm sure his focus is split between her and trying to stay afloat here. I think you could cut him a break. The manager, now a little more serious, finally spoke. What exactly are you proposing? Keanu exhaled, feeling the weight of his decision already taking shape. I'm suggesting you give him a raise, a small one. Enough to make a real difference. And perhaps, if he's willing, offer him some time off every now and then to care for his wife. Earl won't ask for it, but it might be what he needs to keep going. The manager looked at Keanu for a moment, the wheels turning in his head. And what's in it for you? Keanu smiled faintly, as if he'd been expecting that question. Nothing, really. I'm just doing the right thing. The way I see it, we've got a chance here to make a difference, not just for Earl, but for the kind of place we want to be, a place where we take care of the people who make it work. There was another pause, and then the manager shrugged, clearly not sold on the idea but acknowledging the sincerity in Keanu's voice. Fine. I'll think about it. But no promises. Keanu nodded, his resolve unshaken. That's all I ask. Later that day, Keanu made his way back to the parking lot. He didn't know what would come of his conversation, but something told him that this was only the first step. He caught sight of Earl, wrapping up his shift, and walked over to him with a calm, purposeful stride. Earl, who had been expecting another quiet goodbye, looked up to see Keanu standing there with a small smile on his face. Keanu, feeling a bit lighter after his conversation with the manager, spoke with a tone that was both reassuring and determined. You're doing great work, Earl. But I think it's time you get a little help. Earl raised an eyebrow, clearly curious but also a little suspicious. What do you mean? Keanu smiled. Let's just say I've got a plan in motion. Things are going to get a little easier for you, starting soon. Earl hesitated, unsure of what to make of this. Help? I don't need handouts, Keanu. Keanu shook his head. It's not about that. It's about giving you the space you deserve to take care of yourself and Margaret. You've been carrying too much alone. Earl fell silent, looking at Keanu for a long moment. He could see that Keanu wasn't just saying words, there was a plan behind them. But the weight of his pride made him reluctant to accept. I don't know if I'm ready for this, Earl finally said. Keanu placed a hand on his shoulder, his voice soft but firm. You don't have to be ready. You've done more than enough. Sometimes, letting others help you isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Earl exhaled slowly, the battle between his pride and the need for help playing out in his mind. Maybe, just maybe, he could allow himself to accept that strength wasn't always about carrying the weight alone. Keanu gave him a final nod before heading to his bike, his eyes thoughtful. As he climbed onto the motorcycle, he looked over his shoulder at Earl one last time. No matter what happened next, he knew that this small gesture could change everything for the man who had quietly carried the world on his shoulders. As Keanu rode off, he couldn't shake the feeling that, somehow, the world had just become a little brighter for Earl. Turned to him, her eyes clearer than he'd seen in a long time. A faint recognition flickered in her gaze, and for a brief moment, she looked at him as though she was truly present. She squeezed his hand, and a soft, fragile smile graced her lips. Earl's heart skipped a beat. Was it possible? Had the fog of Alzheimer's lifted, even for just a moment? His voice broke with emotion. "Margaret?" She nodded slightly, a gentle affirmation that felt like a miracle. The weight in Earl's chest, the years of uncertainty and struggle, seemed to lighten, if only just for this fleeting moment. He couldn't help but tear up, overwhelmed by the sudden shift. As he gazed at her, his thoughts flashed to the mysterious benefactor who had made this possible. Keanu had kept his word, and Earl would never be able to truly thank him, not in the way he wished to. The relief he felt was something he hadn't allowed himself to hope for in so long. "Thank you," Earl whispered, though he knew it wasn't just for the financial gift. It was for the unseen hand that had extended itself when Earl felt utterly alone. After breakfast, Earl spent the day taking extra care of Margaret, ensuring her comfort and trying to savor the brief moment of clarity she'd shown him. When the time came for him to leave for work, he felt a small sense of hope that he hadn't known in years. The next few weeks passed with a new rhythm. Earl still worked hard at the market, organizing carts with the same determination he always had, but now there was something different in his step. His burdens, though still heavy, felt a little easier to carry. The days seemed to stretch longer in a way that felt less oppressive, and every time he looked at Margaret, he remembered that love wasn't just about surviving, it was about fighting together, even in the quietest moments. And then, one afternoon, as Earl was finishing up another row of carts, he spotted Keanu again in the parking lot. This time, Keanu didn't wait for Earl to approach him. He walked directly to him, a warm, knowing smile on his face. "Looks like you're doing all right," Keanu said casually, though there was a depth in his voice that conveyed understanding. Earl glanced at him, feeling a lump form in his throat. "I don't know how to thank you." Keanu raised a hand, stopping him before he could say more. "No thanks needed. You're doing the hard work already. You're the one who deserves the credit." Earl nodded, overwhelmed by the simplicity of the gesture. "You didn't have to do what you did." "I know. But I wanted to," Keanu said, his voice quiet but firm. "Everyone deserves a little help now and then. Especially someone like you." They stood there in silence for a moment, the weight of their unspoken understanding settling between them. Then, with a slight nod, Keanu turned and walked away, leaving Earl with more than just an unexpected gift. He left him with a restored sense of dignity, a reminder that sometimes the quietest acts of kindness can create ripples that change the course of a life. As Keanu disappeared into the distance, Earl couldn't help but feel that for once, everything was going to be okay. This story encapsulates the quiet yet profound power of kindness and human connection, emphasizing the idea that the most meaningful acts of goodwill are often those that are carried out without the expectation of recognition or reward. At its heart, it is a narrative about resilience, particularly the resilience of love, devotion, and the sacrifices made for the people we care about. Keanu Reeves' subtle intervention, though pivotal in transforming the lives of Earl and his wife Margaret, only serves to amplify the true emotional core of the story. Earl's unyielding love for his wife and his unwavering commitment to ensuring that she receives the care and attention she needs, despite the personal and financial toll it has taken on him. The story is a poignant reminder that kindness, in its simplest form, has the potential to create lasting change. Keanu's role in the narrative is not one of a grand hero seeking applause or acknowledgement. Rather, it is the quiet, unobtrusive intervention of a person who recognizes the vulnerability and struggle of another and steps in, not for self-glorification, but simply to make a difference. It is the kind of action that requires no fanfare but has a deep, reverberating impact. Keanu does not expect to be thanked, nor does he seek credit. He does what he does because, at a fundamental level, he knows that his actions, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, can have a ripple effect on the lives of others. The story's core message is clear: kindness doesn't have to be loud or dramatic to change lives. Sometimes, it's the quietest acts that carry the most weight. Earl's life before Keanu's intervention is one of hardship, sacrifice, and enduring love. His marriage to Margaret, despite the challenges brought on by her Alzheimer's disease, is a testament to the depth of his devotion. He is a man who has given up almost everything, his home, his belongings, his personal comfort, in order to make sure his wife gets the care she deserves. In many ways, Earl is the embodiment of resilience. His love for Margaret is unwavering, and he carries the weight of their life together, despite the overwhelming obstacles they face. His life is a daily reminder of the selfless sacrifices that often go unnoticed by the world. He doesn't seek help from others, and though he has been left with little, he refuses to give up on the woman he loves. His pride prevents him from accepting assistance, and he shoulders his burdens alone. It is in this quiet struggle, this determined persistence, that the story finds its most profound emotional resonance. Despite all the pain and loss, Earl's devotion to Margaret never wavers. He continues to work a physically demanding job, enduring pain and exhaustion, just to ensure that Margaret can receive the treatment she so desperately needs. His actions are not motivated by self-interest, nor are they intended to garner sympathy. Instead, they are driven by love, a love that transcends the challenges they face, a love that endures in the face of a cruel illness that slowly takes away everything they once knew. Keanu's intervention, while transformative, is not a cure-all for their struggles. Rather, it is a moment of grace in the midst of relentless hardship. When Keanu enters the scene, it is clear that he has observed Earl's situation and recognized the silent suffering that Earl has been enduring. It's clear that Keanu's decision to help is not about changing Earl's life forever, but about offering him a brief respite, a moment of relief in a life that has been marked by sacrifice and endurance. Keanu does not intervene to become a savior or hero. Rather, he acts out of genuine empathy and a desire to ease Earl's burden. He provides financial assistance, arranges for Margaret's treatment to be covered, and offers a brief, much-needed rest for Earl, all without asking for anything in return. Keanu does not need the credit or recognition for his actions. He simply wants to make a difference in the life of someone who so clearly deserves it. What makes Keanu's role in the story so fitting is the way it mirrors his character, both in this fictionalized portrayal and in the public persona he has cultivated over the years. Keanu is often seen as someone who embodies humility and kindness, someone who uses his platform to help others without seeking attention or accolades. This portrayal of Keanu in the story serves to emphasize the idea that true kindness is not about the self, it is about what we can give to others, even when no one is watching. This kind of humility, where the act of giving is the reward in itself, is a rare and valuable quality, one that the story emphasizes through Keanu's actions. The emotional centerpiece of the story comes when Earl and Margaret share a tender moment of dancing together. Despite the obstacles they've faced, despite the years of illness and hardship, this moment of connection allows them to briefly return to the love they once shared in their earlier years of marriage. It is a fleeting but beautiful return to a time before Alzheimer's took its toll, and in that moment, the world around them falls away. There is no illness, no hardship, no fear of the future, only the pure joy of dancing together. It is as though, for a brief time, they are back on their wedding day, celebrating a love that has withstood the test of time. The simplicity of this moment, the quiet joy and intimacy it conveys, is powerful. It is a moment of tenderness, and it speaks to the beauty of love that persists even when everything else seems uncertain. The dance serves as a reminder of the depth of Earl's love for Margaret and the resilience that love requires. It's a powerful, silent declaration of their bond, one that cannot be broken, even by the challenges they face. In that fleeting moment, Earl and Margaret are not defined by the illness or the financial difficulties that have marked their lives. Instead, they are defined by their love, and it is this love that sustains them through the hardest times. This moment is a pure expression of their devotion, and it stands in stark contrast to the harsh realities they face every day. The ending of the story, with Earl's quiet gratitude and acknowledgement of the kindness he has received, is deeply moving. After all the trials, all the sacrifice, Earl finally feels as though his love and efforts have been seen and appreciated. It is not about the money or the material support, it is about the recognition of his struggles and the understanding that someone, a stranger even, cared enough to offer him a helping hand. When Earl reads the note that came with the gift, he feels seen and understood in a way that he never has before. The words "take care of her. You are not alone" serve as a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there are people who care. The note is a simple yet profound gesture of kindness, one that shows that someone is willing to shoulder part of his burden, if only for a short time. This quiet, unspoken acknowledgement of Earl's pain and sacrifice is what truly resonates in the closing moments of the story. The way he holds Margaret's hand, expressing his gratitude, is a simple but profound gesture that speaks volumes. It is a moment of quiet reflection, where Earl realizes that, for the first time in a long time, he doesn't have to carry everything alone. This realization, though subtle, is transformative. It gives him a renewed sense of hope and strength as he continues to care for Margaret. In the end, the story is about the power of love, kindness, and human connection. It demonstrates how even the smallest acts of kindness can change lives, and that sometimes it is in the quietest gestures that we find the most profound impact. The story also reminds us that the truest acts of compassion come without any expectation of recognition, and that sometimes the smallest ripple in someone's life can have the most far-reaching effects. The message of the story is simple but powerful. Love and kindness can overcome even the darkest moments, and sometimes all it takes is a small gesture to change someone's world. The quiet resolution of the story, with Earl and Margaret continuing their lives with a renewed sense of hope, reflects the enduring power of love and compassion. It's not flashy, and it doesn't demand attention, but it leaves an indelible mark on the hearts of the characters and the audience alike. The story leaves us with a sense of quiet, lingering hope, and a reminder that even in the face of hardship, love and kindness are forces that can transform lives.